Weston to move the motion? If members could leave quietly, please. Order.
Thank you, Chair. The motion I wish to put before you is as follows: that this House has considered new offices for Warwick District Council. May I start by thanking you, Chair, for giving the opportunity to debate this issue, which is of course immediate concern to residents in Warwick District, which includes my constituency of Warwick and Leamington, and part of the neighbouring constituency of Kenilworth and Southam, and indeed part of the Stratford constituency. On the first glance, this will of course appear parochial in its motion, but in actual fact, I think it has much wider implications for all local authorities across the country, because it is fundamentally about the question of the use of public money and how an authority uses planning legislation for its own ends, and indeed how it uses its public money to build, say, in this example, a new council office at a time of austerity, when there are huge pressures on local authorities to restructure, to consider merging, and indeed to close certain services. We're seeing the like of our children's centres closing, but also women's refuges. And my question then would be, where are the priorities? Are these indeed the right priorities for them? So the issue at hand is about the proposal for Warwick District Council to relocate from its current site near the centre of Leamington Town Centre to another site which it owns indeed in the town centre. It is a joint planning application, including the development of current site for housing of 214 new homes in total. Together with the development of the offices at the Covent Garden site, it will incorporate a new multi-storey car park, replacing the existing car park that occupies that site. At last night's planning meeting, both applications were in actual fact approved. I do not agree, and the public do not agree with those approvals. Why are they building a new office in the first place? That has to be the first question. Yes, indeed.
Perhaps it would be the case that what the council is seeking to do is to move to offices that are smaller, cheaper, more efficient, and therefore enable them to provide precisely the public services that no doubt his constituents and mine would want provided.
Well, indeed, my honourable friend makes a fair point, and I think in these times when local authorities are restructuring under the pressures of budgetary restraint, that indeed could be an option. But there are other options, of course, which are moving into existing buildings that the authority already owns, which are vacant. So you're quite right to highlight that, and I will come on to develop that point. Indeed, how can a council, which is likely to impose a 3% council tax increase in April, alongside other council tax increases that will see perhaps a total rise of 7 to 8% for council taxpayers, justify using scarce resources to build itself a shiny new office when its sister county council has the necessary vacant space and is closing much valued children's centres, claiming that the buildings are not what councils should be doing, that they should be simply contracting out delivery services. The council's justifications include making the offices just 500 metres closer to the town centre, or that it might be more economic to run. They claim it will be cost neutral and perhaps save £300,000 a year. On recent experience of their projects on leisure centres, I think that would be far or wide of the mark.
Get in there, son.
There are three main reasons here. The lack of provision for affordable housing, so desperately needed in an area, a wrong priority at a time of austerity, and a disruption of car parking in Leamington Town Centre, and ultimately the viability of those town centre businesses. In essence, this is the wrong development at the wrong time in the wrong place. I want to just touch on the affordable home issue. Now, some people may believe that the new office is critical at a time of economic austerity, and that the arguments of better heating and efficiency justify the £10 million spend. But then you discover that the council office project is being funded by the disposal of its site, for the exclusive development of private housing. In fact, both planning applications for the Riverside house site and the Covent Garden site total over 200 dwellings, but none will be council, social or affordable. 0 council, 0 social and 0 affordable housing. Now remember, these 2 applications have been made by the council for the council. So what about the council's own policy? Its own policy, the policy it wrote itself, and specifies in its own local plan that for 40% of properties on large new housing developments should be affordable housing. And to be clear, large is anything greater than 10. So I think both 170 and 44 on each site comfortably qualify. So it is clear that with these applications, indeed their now outline approval, the council is failing to meet its own standards for affordable housing that it places and seeks to place on other developers. What sort of precedent is that setting? Indeed, I will.
I'm grateful. My honourable friend's making an excellent speech. Of course, the issue around the office is a local issue. The issue around the use of land for housing is a national issue. And the use, of course, of land at premium prices that prevents the development of affordable housing has got to be a national issue. Now, I do wonder whether the Minister will have a serious look at this question and see whether the local plan, 40% affordable homes, can be enforced by central government. We really need to think about that as a national public policy.
Good view, sir.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his intervention and the point he makes so well as ever. Indeed, this is an issue. So currently, we find that in Warwick District, and I'm sure in other examples around the country, that only 27% of housing plans that have been approved are for affordable housing. Now, here we have a case where the council itself is actually approving 0% affordable housing. So it has a much wider implication for principle and the necessary housing, as my honourable friend makes. In these developments, if they did apply their own policy, Leamington would gain 86 affordable homes, which would make a huge difference to those families in dire need of homes below market prices. Now, if you'd heard my maiden speech, you'd be aware that there are around 2,400 people on the housing waiting list in Warwick District, that there are 700 people statutory homeless, and that there's been a 50% increase in rough sleeping in recent years. And for young people, the situation is particularly dire. In 2015, Shelter found that 31% of young adults in the area who are working live with their parents, compared to 25% average in England. Now, some may simply excuse the council for ignoring social and affordable housing, accepting that it is not viable to include them. But that's missing the point. The new office development is not necessary, and it is only that which is disguising the council's claim not to build the much-needed affordable housing on these 2 sites. The council's outline planning application has managed to wriggle out of the 40% requirement for affordable housing by securing viability appraisals, that great V word, saying that the developments would not be viable if they provided any affordable housing. Furthermore, council are refusing to release the details of these viability assessments on grounds that they contain commercially sensitive information, partly because the developments are a joint venture with a private company. This indeed ignores the public interest in the investment in new buildings. So the council is claiming in these viability assessments that the capital receipts gained from the housing developments is required to fund the building of the new offices. If this is the case, then the council should never have proposed its new office plan in the first place if it did not have the capacity to provide any affordable housing. And of course, there is the broader issue here with the viability assessments, which are allowing developers to avoid requirements on affordable housing across the board, as I said earlier.